Good evening. I'm Mark V. Smith. I'm the author of the process, the great podcast that I put together. And thank you for joining me this evening for the only roundtable that we're going to do in the month of November. Whenever I do a roundtable with wonderful friends, I always go back and listen to my podcast on that specific acronym that we're going to be discussing for that evening. This is or gives me the opportunity to revisit where I normally was mentally when it was created. So, in revisiting this message from the series "Why Not Me," I zeroed in on something that I mentioned that Dr. Stephen Mirabelli stated. He said the universe doesn't give you what you ask for with your thoughts; it gives you what you demand with your actions. I tend to agree with that statement. However, the only way that we can get into receipt of those actions is for us to do something very basic, and that is to listen. So, with that being the case, I hope you are listening this evening. We definitely, really, really, truly need to listen to our message tonight. As they always say, knowledge speaks, but wisdom listens. So, my topic for tonight is on wisdom. Let's get this started. Hello, welcome back. If you haven't had an opportunity to listen to any of my prior messages or podcasts with every acronym, please revisit those on Spotify, Anchor, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. But more importantly, thank you again for joining me tonight. We just have one rule, and that is we want your participation. So please weigh in. Ask your questions and post comments. We want your feedback. To get us started, whether you're viewing on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, again, please send me your thoughts on the word wisdom and what it means to you. Let me welcome two individuals tonight that are coming to share themselves in this roundtable. My first guest was just on my podcast on star107fm.com. We had over 1,300 people listen to that podcast and the enormous feedback. And once we got done, I asked, would you please be willing to share on this roundtable? And she came back and said, of course. She was just recently named 2022 North Carolina's Outstanding Elementary Assistant Principal of the Year. From Fayetteville, North Carolina, please welcome Dr. Queesha Tillman. Dr. Tillman, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I am doing well and I'm excited to be a part of this tonight.
I know a lot about you. Do me a favor, tell our friends a little bit more about who Dr. Queesha Tillman is.
Well, I am a country girl born and raised in North Carolina from Cumberland County to Sampson County. Um, I am a leader and have been a caregiver since I was a little girl. I'm the oldest and only female in my family, other than my children, my daughter, but I am a family oriented person, and I've taken on the attributes that I've learned as a young girl into my profession. And so now I am a assistant principal and have been an educational leader for 6 years now. So very blessed to have been acknowledged by my peers in Cumberland County and now the state of North Carolina. I am very happy at all that I've accomplished, and I'm excited to be speaking with you on tonight.
Thank you. We definitely look forward to a lot of conversation and a lot of dialogue on that comment or the acronym of wisdom. My next friend, man, over 45 years of history between this gentleman and myself. It's amazing to see and read what he's already accomplished, and the best is still on the horizon. He's held office of training as a training officer. He was a training consultant and a training program manager for the state of Ohio Department of Administrative Services. Now he's the chief learning officer at the Talent Development Company, his company in Columbus, Ohio. Please welcome my good friend, Mr. Roderick Cheatham. Rod, good evening. How are you?
Hello, Mark. It's good to be here. I'm extraordinarily excited about being here with you and Dr. Q. This is my first podcast situation. I'm really excited about it.
Well, good, good. I kind of gave them a brief overview of who Rod
Okay.
Cheatham is. Tell them a little bit more about yourself, if you don't mind.
I will. I've been speaking and teaching for over 30 years now. I found a letter in my office dated 1991 when I spoke at Youngstown State University, and it made me feel really old, but it made me realize that I've been doing some of the same work for about 30 years, essentially trying to inspire and inform individuals and transform communities, individuals to be better and to do better. As a chief learning officer of a talent development company, we plan to do just that for individuals and organizations to increase capacity so they can do more of what they're already doing. So that's in a nutshell, and we'll share more as we go forward.
Absolutely. Thank you. Again, thank you both for joining me. I'm going to jump right into it. This series and all my series and what I've developed, which is we're closing 5 on a 10-part series called The Process. And I know that the process means different things to different individuals within their life. And it carries a different weight or different magnitude to each individual as they grow. Everybody hears me say, we don't go forward, we grow forward. So I want to ask each one of you to kind of get us started. I'm a gentleman, ladies first. I'm going to ask Dr. Tillman, what does the process mean to you and in your life?
Well, the process involves many, many steps. As I shared with you when I spoke with you during your podcast previously, I've always been an avid writer. So I write everything down. So a part of my process is to write everything down, make a checklist for myself, and then chunk it. I believe what the word says, you have make that vision, write it down, make it plain. That is exactly what I do in order to achieve anything that I'm setting my mind to do. Sometimes it can get overwhelming, but that's when that chunking comes into play. You take baby steps, whatever steps you need, just as long as you're moving. There's movement and there's not stopping. So my process involves many steps, but forward movement is key.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. How about you, Rob?
When I think of process, Mark, I think of a particular order or some steps in which things are going to be done to get a key result. That result could be a change, some type of change. Usually it's physical, it could be emotional, it could be spiritual, or some type of chemical change. So it's usually a step-by-step process. As it relates to me in my life, I think that there are times when I could realize that maybe my process is off because I'm not getting the end results that I need to get. That could be something spiritual, maybe I need to be more into the word, or maybe I need to be more into worship if I feel like my spiritual life is out. Maybe if I feel like my waist is getting a little big, maybe I feel like my process is off. Maybe I need to start another step-by-step process to get the end result. So process to me has to do with the steps taken to get a particular result.
Thank you. Thank you both for getting us started. And as you know, I would never ask you a question that I won't answer. That's just what we do. The process for me is learning every step of the way, taking something from each step and understanding what it's supposed to mean. I know a lot of times we don't understand at that particular junction, but that old saying, it's not if we get it, but when we get it. So being able to adapt and accept where we are and move forward. Dr. Tillman says something about writing it down. And that's an area, I call it an area of opportunity, because I definitely need to continue writing things down, whether it's in my notes or whether it's in my on my journals. Rob mentioned something earlier too about just taking the steps and assessing where you need to be, where you are, and what you need to do to move forward, and processing that to get to where you want to go. I say a lot of times it's something that I've heard is a lot of people can see, but many don't have vision. And what I mean by that, again, is individuals say they want to do something and they want the instant gratification behind it. versus understanding as they go through the process, as they're going through the natural order of the way things are going to be supposed to be done, then they'll eventually get the results if they put the work in. See, that's where a lot of people fall short. They want that instant pie in the sky, but don't want to put that work in. So thank you both for getting me started. Again, for those of you who are listening, what does wisdom mean to you? We're at that's our topic tonight. But as everybody knows and knows me, I do things a little different. Um, and what I mean by that is wisdom carries a different meaning for everything and for everybody. And for the sake of our roundtable tonight, it stands for withstanding internal situations depends on our motivation. That's wisdom. So I asked my guests tonight if they would think about each one of those words that are sitting inside there, and from that point on, dissect which of the three mean the most to them and why. One word at a time. So I'm gonna start with you, Rod. Then I'm gonna send it to Dr. Tillman right after that, and then I will close it out, and we'll send it back around with the second word. So the first word to you in wisdom, what would that be, and why?
I really like the way you work with your acronyms and most of your shows and some of the things that I see that you post. And this was particularly interesting as well. And being a wise person and striving to be someone who embodies wisdom, I really appreciate this particular one. So I like when I start with W, see the withstanding has to do with whatever you're going through. You got to believe that you're going to be unaffected by it, or that you can withstand something, that you can come out undamaged, and just believe that at the end of whatever the opportunity or whatever the setback was that you've had, you can withstand it and come out unaffected and undamaged. So I think it's a lot about being undamaged.
Okay. Dr. Tillman.
Absolutely. So my first word, of course, is withstanding. And when I think about withstanding, I think about the word persevere. And that to me means that no matter what comes, no matter what obstacles come your way, that you have a plan and you're going to get through it. You may have to cry. You may have to go somewhere, sit in a corner, and just, try to compose yourself. It may take some time. We may have to backtrack a little bit, but we don't stop. Again, that forward movement, that persevering, that means you're going through regardless. You have your mind made up, and there's nothing that can come that's going to stop you.
I like that persevere. That's key. It's going to be a trifecta. I'm going to jump right in there with you. The first one that comes to mind and means to me is definitely withstanding. And, I can count with complete transparency, I can count the numerous times in my life that I had to endure the trials. I think all of us have. I'm talking about the days when I didn't even want to get out of bed. Those days that I just felt so defeated even before the day started. And again, I'm sure both of you know what I'm talking about as well as our listeners tonight. But I recall my mother repeating to me once that something that was simple. She said, "Faith will always whisper to the warrior. You can't withstand the storm, but the warrior shall always whisper back, I am the storm." So withstanding adversity, standing still, often is a lot of people's downfall in life. What else I found out to be consistent is that once the storm is over, you won't even remember how you made it through or how you even managed to withstand and survive and persevere. You won't even be sure whether or not the storm actually is over. Something else that's factual that I truly believe is when you come out of the storm, you definitely won't be the same person you were when you walked in. So you definitely have to work to consistently be who you are along that part where you're withstanding. So again, thank you all for starting that. I'm gonna jump back for a second. Dr. Tillman, you talked about perseverance.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity can you kind of describe to us when that actually withstanding has played a major part in your success in your life?
Oh, absolutely. So I can start with my PhD. Working on a doctoral degree is to me worse than having a baby. At least you see the end result, having a baby, 9 months later, there's a baby coming. But with this PhD, it was ongoing. It was denial after denial in terms of my draft and my dissertation. When you're working on a PhD, a high level terminal degree like that, you have your chairperson, you have a whole committee and your mentor. So there's a process. Okay, there's a process you have to go through to get every part of your dissertation approved. And I received, and I think I told this testimony to some of my coworkers and some of my friends who were pursuing, but I was rejected 11 times. 11 times. Okay. And I could have very well given up and said, well, I'm not good enough. They don't see my vision. They're not understanding my research or this, that, and the third, but I could not. I come too far and I dare not give up. So definitely persevering, withstanding. Yes, that meant I had to do it 12 times, 13 times, just to make sure that I completed the process that was required of me. And I did so in October 2013. I received my PhD in human services, and that was a phenomenal achievement for me. The first one in my family to even go to grad school, and definitely the first one to receive a doctoral degree. So I am very glad. And let me just say this to everyone listening. I could not have done that without my spiritual base. I could not have persevered through all those rejections, through all those no's. And that just goes to show in life, we're going to be told no a few times, but we can't let that stop us because we will never win. Mm-hmm. But I did receive a win October 2013. Mm-hmm. I'm not giving up.
That's right. I say, I always tell everybody it's not no, it's next. It's not no, it's next. Or do you, if you said no, or did you forget to add some letters? Not right now. Is that what you must have forgot that? Because I don't see that as being a hindrance. Rob, what about you? When has withstanding been so paramount in your life? And you okay giving an example of it?
Well, first thing I can think of, since you made an example out of school, I can go back to when I was achieving my MDiv program. It was a 3-year program. And right when I set myself to go into the program, one of my sons were murdered in July 4th of 2007, and that was a huge emotional setback. But I had to go forth and go on through the school. I started the school into that same fall. It was a 3-year program, and you went through the grieving process with that. And it would hit you at certain times, and you had to keep moving. And I remember when I thought a huge amount of the grieving was over, that last year when I was about to finish the MDiv program, I just remember out of nowhere, I was like I got hit by a bag of bricks with grief and just grieving over my son. So I just think of that time period when I think of where it was finals time period, and had to keep pushing. Mm-hmm. Had to withstand and just keep moving and keep digging, and ultimately we got the goal of the degree.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I love it. I go back sharing again and sharing. Some people know, some people don't know. And I truly credit perseverance and accepting. I use that word a lot. Accepting my situation and not casting blame. A lot of people know that November 19th is a special day. Not only is it my birthday, it's the day that my father passed away. So to understand the fact and understand the magnitude of how do you get through that? How do you go through that? Because many years after when he passed away in 2003, many years I was angry on that day. When that day would come around, I was so angry. I didn't think it was a day worth even living or celebrating. And through the blessing of my wife, through prayer, through a lot of seeking answers to what it should be, I realized that I'm a truly lucky person. I had that time with my father, but also, how highly favored could I be by withstanding this? This is the day that God gave me life. It's the day He ended my dad's suffering. So why shouldn't I? What shouldn't I appreciate by that? I've
Right.
withstanded all that and understood exactly where I needed to go and what my purpose. So again, thank you both for taking the
Right.
personal aspect of it and looking at it. We're gonna start with you first. I want to, Dr. Tillman, you first this time. What would be that second word in withstand and why?
I chose depends. I did. I chose depends because when I think of that word, I think about a cause and effect situation. If I do this, it affects this. If I do this, this will happen. So when you look up the word depend, you will see contingency or contingent. You will see vary, rest upon, altered, or influenced by. And so depend stood out to me because if we think about our day-to-day lives and the choices that we make in terms of goal setting, this depends on this. My attitude depends on the outcome. My work ethic depends on what I achieve. So depends is a strong word. And I didn't think that it would be as big until I looked it up. But there's a lot that rides on that word depends. What is your work ethic dependent on? What's the contingent? So I chose depend.
Absolutely. I'm sure you tell your kids, and I know Rod tells his kids. Now, there's consequences for every action. So
Yeah.
depending on what you do, it will
Yeah.
depend
Right.
your
Exactly.
risk and your reward. Dr. Tillman, can you show everybody what the writing is behind you? We were talking a little bit
Yeah.
about the show.
Yes, so let me read. This is a saying that I'm sharing space with my husband in his man cave. So I couldn't use a whole lot of girly stuff. So I decided to go with the motivational piece. Ability is what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do, and attitude determines how well you do it. Words to live by.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rod, what would be your second one?
I'm gonna go down and come back up, but since you talked about depend, that was one of the words that I highlighted in the definition too of wisdom. Because the dependency has to do with controlling factors, right? So it's about the factors that determine what you do. If you're in a particular situation, then how you're gonna get out of it or change the situation is gonna always depend on something, and it's depending on the different factors. I wrote, and when I thought of this, I wrote down also process because we talked about controlled by factors, and that takes us back to where we started in the beginning when we defined process. Sometimes we have to look at the factors depending on the situation, look at the things that are dependent upon, and to even come up with a different process. So the factors are actually could be the steps towards the process.
Okay. All right. I like that. I like that. For me, I gotta deviate a little bit. For me, it was my second one definitely is internal. And one of my favorite sayings is that I always look to it a lot of times, and it says the past is a guidepost, not a hitching post. When I look at that and I think about that, it reminds me of old situations. And when old situations surface, that statement eases my mind to allow me to mentally step over what I call those boulders. And as a work in progress, the greatest battles are not those that you fight with guns and swords, it's the internal struggles of life that often win some of the war. And I talked about at times feeling like, now I don't say helpless and hopeless, but I'm going to say not motivated to get up and get going. I felt defeated. I felt like wasn't even an opportunity. So, I sometimes I believe that we live in a time of conflict, external and internal, where the internal appears to often trump the external a lot of times. You see it in the way we clothe, our attitude, our answers. We see those on our face. We carry that with us, that baggage, excuse me. I always use myself as an example because every day every day gives me a chance to get better within so I can share it with others. So I had to ask myself, if my actions were to boomerang back to me instantly, would I still act the same? And man, that was a tough question. I had to really take a soul search of where I was internally, because that was going to definitely define what I'm going to do externally. So, time has given us all a chance to remove those internal struggles and to begin. I use the first one, withstanding internal battles. So again, thank you both. I'm gonna stop right here because I want to go back and hit you, Rod, first.
Okay.
Gotta come to you first. Let's talk a little bit more about those factors. What are
Okay.
those factors that you feel that depend on you moving things to another level?
Probably.
I'm sorry. Let me clarify.
Okay.
Those personal factors that you feel help you make that determination to depend to the next level.
I would say it's just making a decision up in your mind that you're going to move forward. That would be one factor, just trying to make a decision, because sometimes we can get stalled in our thinking, and that'll install our actions. So just trying to think about the things that you want to do, write them down, as Dr. Q mentioned. That's key too. We've heard that other places where that's very important, writing a vision. Just being methodical, trying to be methodical about the steps you take to make something happen. And just be real conscious of what it is that you're doing. And, sometimes if you're not doing enough, you look around who you're dealing with. Those could be factors as well, what you're doing or what you're not doing.
Mm-hmm. The proverbial cage, not the circle, right?
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Dr. Tillman, you talked about choices. Man, we probably could be here till 10:30, 11 o'clock tonight talking about choices itself. Can you kind of go into a little bit more detail on how those choices really are depend on the importance of the choices and how they will depend on your outcome from your perspective?
Okay. It's just like what I try to it is ministering, but it's what I try to minister into my scholars on a day-to-day basis, especially when I'm dealing with mentoring aspects or coaching aspects or even in discipline. Your actions can impede your future. And that's powerful. And how I help them to understand that in an elementary setting is that today you choose to take something away from your classroom that doesn't belong to you, or today you choose to cheat on a test, or today you choose to put your hands on someone that you shouldn't, right? But if we continue to make those type of choices, what will happen to you in the next 5 years, the next 8 years, the next 10 years? So you got to think about the actions that you take today. How can it impact your future? And so if we take that same logic and apply into our adult lives and what the things are that we are trying to achieve, your actions, if you don't put, even with achieving a degree, if we don't put in any work behind that, if we don't study, if we don't take the time to read, if we don't take the time to research, and our actions don't line up, then you won't, receive the result that you're looking for. So the actions that we take are very important, and the choices that we make impedes our actions. So trickle down effect, and it's all steps. Just like Mr. Cheatham said, it's all steps. It's all a part of a process. And making choices, appropriate and effective choices, does impact your future, and it does impact the process.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Very good. Now, when I wrote The Perfect Storm, which was series 2 of the process, I had an analogy that was an epiphany, but it also I found out by applying it every day in everyday life that it actually is a tested and true thing. So when I talk with young men and young women all the time, I just tell them quickly, they'll come in and they'll tell me, Mr. Smith, I want to do this. I would tell them, words lie. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I say, guess what? So actions lie too. And then, wait a minute, Mr. Smith, you said words lie and actions lie. Well, that doesn't equate. I said, yes, it does, because consistency doesn't lie. So if you're coming in here every single day and you're doing what you're supposed to do every single day, then guess what? You're going to get the results every day. But at the end of the day, it's still a choice. It's still a choice that you have to make, a choice that you're willing to make to get to the levels that you want to get to. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be pretty. And trust and believe, it's not going to be pretty. And you're going, and that network that Rob was just talking about, you're going to see the true network of who your people are. You're going to see the true network of the individuals who have your back and have support behind you to make sure that you are getting where you need to go. And you'll see those people will drop off like flies because they really don't have your best interest. So thank you. All right, Rod, the last one before we move into something else. What would be that last letter? And wait a minute, before we do that, Rod, all our individuals who are listening, we still don't see your results. Of those words, wisdom, which ones mean the most to you? So go ahead, Rod. I'm sorry, sir.
Okay, you want to get the callers in for the viewers in. Okay, so situation, I would say situation was key. It all hinges on the situation. The situation is pretty much a set of circumstances where one finds oneself. So that's like where you are. That's the reality of the situation, where you are located right now in your mind, your thinking, what you're dealing with. And that's where the wisdom has to be applied so that you can know which way to go forward. So a lot of hinges on the situation. And everyone's situation is going to be different. Everyone's set of circumstances is going to be different. So you had to look into your own situation to see what got you here. Are you where you want to be? How are you going to get out of it? What steps are you going to take? So everyone has to look at inside themselves. This is the internal piece that's above that in the I, but also in the essence situation, you had to understand where you are, what's your situation, and what you need to do to go forward. And wisdom is essentially the steps you take to go forward, knowing the steps to go forward and understanding them and applying them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Dr. Tillman, what about you? What was your third one?
My third one was motivation. And I have it on the wall. I just read it to you. But motivation is what you do. So again, having that motivation, how bad do you really want it? Right? How bad do you really want it? Whatever it is you're seeking, are you seeking a promotion? Okay, because I am. And with that, how bad do you want it? What's your motivation for moving up? What's your motivation for leveling up? What is it that you want to do? So, and how bad do you want to do that? So there are some things in the process that you got to participate in, right? You got to put the work in, as we've said time and time again tonight. What's your motivation to do it? Why? Okay, what's your why? So my third one was motivation. Thought it was powerful.
I love it. I always say, when I first came out the process, and still one of my closing taglines, I say your why is greater than your situation, which is part of your process. So for me, situation would be the one that I would definitely close with. And one of the things that I say daily is that all of us, we don't have problems. We have situations. And a situation truly to me is an opportunity in disguise of growth. So what is it doing? It's telling me that no longer, to me, comfort will be a casualty of growth. I'm placed in this situation because I don't like where you are right now. I want you to expand. So what seems to happen quite frequently, and not all the time, is that I find that we don't take this change, or we don't make this change until something terrible happens to us. We react instead of being proactive to situations at the hand and agree to change. At that point, we have to agree to change the behavior, right? Because we can't do it. And I can't lie, I've been guilty of it in my journey, but I always go back to some strong advice that I was told, and that was simple: that the classroom of the world comes at the feet of an elderly person. So I hold on to what my father and mother said. I hold on to what my mother-in-law says. I hold on to what my grandparents told me, what my aunts and uncles tell me, what Miss Marlene across the street from 3011 Langfield, what she told me about how simplicity life can be when you go through those situations. And I know for sure that I will, you will, all of us get through them 100% of the time. Think about one time that you didn't get through your situation. You are 100%. If you're listening, if you're watching, if you've gone through something, you've got through each and every one of them. It may not have been what you wanted. But guess what? It was for your best interest. So you are 100. You are perfect at getting through any situation. So again, thank you, thank you. Let me give you a wild card, family. Of the what would if I gave you a fourth? What would that fourth would have been? Let's start with. I'm gonna start with you, Dr. Tillman. What would that fourth be?
The fourth would be, oh, that's a good one. I would think internal. Internal would be my fourth one, because it starts in internal, your internal processing. You got to think it, you got to grapple with that thing. You got to make a decision, make your mind up. What is it? So I think internal, and me as being the person who I am, I have a lot of feelings. I am one of those people. And so it starts internally, how I'm feeling and how I'm processing things. And, how it definitely affects my outward appearance and what I do. Everyone, everything that everyone sees me doing on a daily basis, especially at the job. But yeah, internal will be my fourth one.
Okay. Rod, what about you? What would have been the fourth one?
Well, I kind of mentioned it earlier, a little bit about internal. I would go with that as well, because internal has so much to do with what's on the inside. And really all that we want to be and all we want to do is really inside of us. It's just a matter of being in the right places to allow it to be pulled out of us, being around the right people, asking the right questions and doing the right thing. So I like the internal part, because it's all that we are going to be is inside of us. It's just a matter of having that to being groomed and grow with that.
Mm-hmm. I would have to say, I'd have to go back and say motivation as well, because what you see in your mirror is going to dictate where you go. Every morning, that first visual cue when you walk in there and to get yourself ready, what you see is going to give you that positive or negative mindset to be motivated or demotivated to go through the day. So motivation would be the one for me. Somebody has a question, so I'm gonna ask each one of you. Can you weigh in on this question? Start with you first, Rod. Somebody wants to know: can situation and motivation be one and the same?
I would say yes, because the situation that you're in could very well be the source of motivation. Depending, if you're in a bad situation or negative situation, that should be motivation enough to change your life situation and try to do something right. So I think the situation definitely leads to some type of motivation. It should.
Okay. All right. Dr. Tillman, what do you think? Can situation and motivation be one and the same?
I'm not sure if, with my thinking, I'm not sure if it's one and the same, but they do impact each other. Mm-hmm. Just like Mr. Rod was saying, your motivation can impact your situation, or your situation can impact your motivation. Mm-hmm. Moving out of a situation, how motivated are you to do so? It's like a behavior, it's a verb, to me. So what are you willing to do to get up out of that situation? Or with that situation, how motivated are you, to make it even better? So to me, I know that they maybe not one in, the same, but they do impact each other.
Mm-hmm. Got you. I agree. I agree with you 110%. Let's shift gears, because I want to make sure I'm able to get all these answers from both of you scholars tonight. I'm heavy on change, and individuals know that I say change is hard at first, it's messy in the middle, but it's rewarding in the end. And I know that changing who I am to get to where I need to go was something that really needed to be done for me to grow forward, not go forward, but to grow forward. So I'm going to start with you, Dr. Tillman, first. Can you talk about when it was a trifecta, when change was hard at first, messy in the middle, but rewarding at the end?
Okay, so I'll speak on me transitioning into an school administrator. As you already know, I started out as an EC teacher, exceptional children's teacher. Some may know it as special education. I started out there in my teaching career. and I was well content. At that time, I've already received my master's, fully certified as an EC teacher from kindergarten to 12th grade. And I love what I did. I love working with ECs. I learned something every day. So not only was I teaching them, but I was being taught by them as well. Every child was different. So I had something to look forward to every day. It was beautiful to me. And I know teaching exceptional children is more of a calling. Not everyone can do it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Okay. So when I chose to go forward with a doctoral degree, I had some colleagues were like, "You going to stay in the classroom as a Dr. Tillman, as a teacher?" Well, why not? They need me. My kids need me. So yes, I'm going to do that. But with other mentors, other colleagues, speaking life into me, seeing greater, seeing how I can impact more families, more scholars, more families that live with disabilities. As an administrator, I started to think, well, maybe let's give it a try. Let's see what it does. I can always go back to the classroom if, this administrator thing doesn't work out. So in the middle, the change was kind of hard to kind of shift my gears towards many, people serving many, as opposed to my little 12, my little 14 families, So once I transitioned into administrator, that's that middle part. It was kind of shaky. I don't know. Can I do this? Can I do this? But later in the end, after persevering, after withstanding, and learning tricks of the trade and how to get better in my craft and using the soft skills that I was already gifted with, paired with my knowledge, of course, I saw that, this was a fit for me. And I was able to impact not only my families of people who live with disabilities, but I was all kids, all scholars benefited from some of the wisdom that I had, that I have. So that was a course that kind of was shaky at first, kind of rough, definitely in the middle, but it is so rewarding, so rewarding. And so now we have people across the county that can speak on my ability to not only teach exceptional children, special education, but now as an administrator, how to really manage a school, how to really take charge and be that true servant leader that I was even in the classroom.
Great, wonderful story. Rod, what about you? Change was hard at first, messy in the middle, but rewarding at the end.
Well, out of this very same topic, I created working on a piece called Victorious Transitions, Overcoming Change. And most of it is coming out of my own story, right? Because I do believe that change happens. It can happen through you or to you, or it can happen by surrounding things around you. It's not always your decision sometimes what change you're going to go through. It could be a death of someone else. It could be a change in job situation. So change is usually kind of instant, but the transition you go through to deal with the change is what takes time. And typically people go through a cycle from when they begin change, from when it begins or when a situation ends, and you have to go through this curve where things kind of go down, you get confused, you're depressed, you're not happy, you're kind of confused, you don't know which way forward. Then you start coming out of that as you start going up with new ideas, new inspiration, new motivation, and you start embracing the new. So usually we go through the process when we have change, and it's a transition that we deal with the most. That's not only from an individual standpoint, but from an organizational standpoint. But me as an individual, over the last years, over the last 18 months, I had 4 or 5 deaths, 4 of them family members, actually 5 of them, 4 family members and 1 very close friend in a short period of time. And so that was a lot of change for me personally that I had to overcome and get through and come out of, because it affected how my livelihood, the things that how I'm going to go forward in this business and developing more trainings and getting more opportunities to speak. And now I'm coming out of that in a great way, and coming out of it stronger than I went through when I was in it. So I thank you for this opportunity to be on your show, because it gives me an opportunity that wouldn't have come, that probably existed beforehand, but now coming out of that through that transition of change, as a result of change, I'm positioning myself to do the things that I know I can do and will be doing.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. I'm gonna say I likened it to the second phase of what I like to call the final phase of my career. I speak not only for as a personal living, but I also teach young men and young women from the reentry capacity as well. And I remember prior to that, I would watch my wife. She actually did that and still does that. She in Washington D.C. She works with individuals who are fresh out of prison, individuals who are trying to change their mindset. So when I adapted in that type of career path before, it was mind-boggling to begin with, because again, I did not know what to expect other than what she told me. See, I had taught classes in workforce development, but these were for people who were unemployed. But to now shift the paradigm to individuals who they're unemployed, but yet and still they are truly seeking your assistance, and you don't know how to give it to them yet because you don't know the quote unquote the rules of the game. So understanding where I needed to be was messy, really messy in the middle, because you didn't know if this is going to be the right thing to say to them or this is not going to be the right thing to say to them. But I circle back and always say that it was the fact that I really trusted in my own personal self. I trusted in the gifts that I had. I trusted in the fact that I am where I'm supposed to be for a specific reason. And that reason allowed me and carried me through to be successful in this particular career field as well, which again, what did it do? It opened doors to what we're doing tonight. It opened doors to allow me to speak at various conferences. It opens doors to allow me to do certain interviews. I'm actually the one being interviewed. So that change of getting out of the comfort zone to understanding what's messy in the middle to where it is right now it's a true transformation, and it's what life's truly about. It's about not being afraid of being afraid. Right, fear. Right. And I use that word fear too, and everybody knows I wrote false evidence appearing real. So that's something else that again we can talk about. Yeah. We got about 5 minutes left, so I want to jump on one last topic real quick before we get out of here. On November 20th, this will be the season finale of The Process Part 5 with the topic Procrastination, the Thief of Time. What advice would you give individuals, Rod, I'm going to start with you, to eliminate procrastination?
Well, that's an interesting question, Mark. I thought about that earlier, and I realized that I've been procrastinating on dealing with the word procrastination. So, and when I used to teach time management classes at different venues, procrastination was one of the elements of time management, and it's often looked upon unfavorable. But when I think about how I deal with it most, unfortunately, I am one that allows that thief to rob some of my time. But what stops it in its track is when I start thinking, well, I'm kind of like the what if person. What's going to happen if you don't act? Mm-hmm. So then you picture that picture. Like if I'm designing a training, and I got the speaking engagement going on, and I'm not, what's going to happen if I don't start acting on it? What's going to happen is it's going to be terrible. It's not going to be put together right. It's not going to come across right. I'm not going to have the impact I want. So that's going to be the total opposite impact that I would like to have. So sometimes that whips me into shape to do what I have to do. Also, I wanted to say too that just as a sidebar, sometimes avoiders who procrastinate, it's not all bad all the time. It's anything in, you do things in moderation, but too much procrastination is bad. But sometimes when you avoid some things, avoiders, those who avoid things in life, sometimes when they do so, certain information or situations present themselves that would not have presented themselves had you acted too hastily. So sometimes you gotta balance it out. Mm-hmm. So, but what's the what if is what I would think about.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I found out the individuals, like kind of what you were talking about as well, as we fall into that bucket of that other word, that word that starts with E and ends with E, excuses. You know, I was talking to a young man the other day, and he kept Mr. Smith, and it was one excuse after another excuse. I said, George Washington Carver said 99% of all failures come from people who make a habit of making excuses. What's next? What's next? How about you, Dr. Tillman?
And I think we talked about this topic too the last time we spoke, Mark, but procrastination robs you of more than just time. If you think about it, it robs you of energy. It can also hinder your success. With procrastination, like Mr. Rod said, it's not always bad, but with me and procrastination, we never got along. Never got along, especially in undergrad. Procrastination caused me to have sleepless nights. I put off something that I should have got done before I laid my head down, and now I can't get rest because it's not done. So it's worrying my mind and it's hindering me from sleep. So it's robbing me from a lot. It's robbing me from my peace is what it's doing.
Right.
But with procrastination, the best thing that you can do, the best advice that I can give anyone with procrastination is to work on your organization. Work on your preparation. Motivation. Here we go again with motivation. What does it take to get you to see that this is significant? This has to get done. This is a part of your checklist. Let's get it done. So with procrastination, the best advice I could give is have a plan and stick to it. As I said in the beginning, writing things down and chunking it little bits at a time. Just that forward movement. It gives you peace. I promise you, it gives you peace, and you can't sleep at night.
Well said. Well said. Well, my view on that question is simple. It's going to be you need to tune in to the season finale of The Process on November 20th on Star 107 FM, and or go back and revisit some of the prior podcasts in this series, Procrastination, the Thief of Time, on iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as Anchor. One last question from my esteemed friends tonight. If there's one word, Dr. Tillman, one word that you can give our listeners who are going through before they get through, what would that one word be?
My one word would be persevere. Persevere. We've said it all night. There is nothing sweeter than knowing that you put in the work, you've done your due diligence, and here at the end, you can reap the rewards. So much sweeter. Just like the award I just received, I'm so grateful. I thank God each and every day. I still can't believe it, but it's real. But I just think about all those times I just put the work in. I had no hidden agenda. I had no ulterior motives other than to help people, help our kids, help my colleagues, help the staff that's under me, that I'm in charge of and have to supervise. I had no other ulterior motive but to help. And me working head down, day to day. Here we go. You see what I'm saying? Here we go. My colleagues recognize me, and now the state of North Carolina does. So very grateful. But perseverance, had I not persevered, even during the hard times, even though there were times where our parents cussed me out, called me every name that you could call someone. There were times where, I didn't always make the right decision or the right call, and I had to learn. I went through growing pains. Had I stopped, had I quit, you see what I'm saying? I wouldn't receive the sweetness that I have now. And so
perseverance
is key. And it's very important. Very sweet.
Thank you. Same question for you, Rob.
All right. I would go with something that we teach in another course I have, but I would go with laughter. I think don't forget to laugh. I mean, it's been part of what's been helping us in our sojourn here in this country, and just as a development of a people, period, all races. Laughter is key. Laughter it has a lot of health benefits too. A lot of people don't know that. Laughter decreases your blood pressure. It also releases endorphins in your mind, your brains. It allows you to feel better when you have pain. It allows you to bond closer as individuals, as company, organizational teams, or as a family. Laughing together does a lot. So don't underestimate the power of laugh, and laugh a little as you persevere.
Mm-hmm. Love it. I'm going to say my word would be, and I said at the top of the show, would be listen. Listen. We have so many individuals that can give us and who have given the blueprint of simplicity. I said that word before as well. Take the time to truly listen before we react. Take the time to truly embrace some of the knowledge that is set before us, the knowledge that is necessary to obtain the wisdom. Take our time and listen, truly listen to those things. Listen to your heart, listen to your soul, and listen to your passion and follow it no matter where you go and what you do. That would be my word. What an amazing set of friends you guys are looking at this evening. Mr. Roderick Cheatham, Dr. Queesha Tillman, thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing wisdom tonight. My prayer is that all the listeners apply the seeds of the fruit that had just been planted tonight. So again, from the bottom of my heart, I am so glad I chose one show for November, and I'm glad that you two agreed to do it. So again, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. I want to thank Toya Glenn and Miss Janet Jack, my production team, for all your hard work and assistance. Again, I want to thank Dibble and Dab for the processed merchandise and continuing marketing work every single day that you do daily. Let me close with this session on wisdom with a short story that I think will help tie a few things together. Now, once upon a time, there were two brothers who lived in adjoining farms, and they fell into conflict. It was the first serious rift in 40 years of farming, side by side, sharing machinery and trading labor and goods as needed without a hitch. Then the long collaboration fell apart. It began with a small misunderstanding and grew into a major difference. And finally, it exploded into an exchange of bitter words, followed by weeks of silence. One morning, there was a knock on John's door. He opened it to find a man with a carpenter's toolbox. He said, "I'm looking for a few days of work," he said. "Perhaps you would have a small jobs here and there that I could help with." He stopped and replied and said, "Yes, I do have a job for you. Look across that creek. That's my neighbor. In fact, it's my younger brother. Last week there was a big meadow between us, and he took his bulldozer to the river levee, and now there's a creek between us. Well, he may have done this to spite me, but I'm going to go one better. See that pile of lumber over there curing in the barn? I want you to build me an 8-foot fence so I won't need to see his place anymore. Cool him down anyhow." Well, the carpenter said, "I think I understand the situation. Show me the nails and the post hole digger, and I'll be able to do that job as it pleases you." The older brother had to go into town for a few supplies, so he helped the carpenter get the materials ready, and then he was off for the day. The carpenter worked hard all day, measuring, sawing, and nailing. About sunset, when the farmer returned, the carpenter had just finished his job. The farmer opened his eyes wide and his jaws dropped. There was no fence at all. It was a bridge stretching from one side of the creek to another. Another fine piece of work of handrails and all. And the neighbor, his younger brother, was coming across, his hand outstretched. "You're quite a fellow to build this bridge after all I've said and done." The two brothers stood at each other at the end of the bridge, and then they met in the middle, taking each other's hand and rejoicing in what they just saw. They turned to see the carpenter hoist his toolbox on his shoulder. No, wait, no, wait. Stay a few days. I've got a lot of other projects for you," said the older brother. The carpenter said, "I'd love to stay, but I have many more bridges to build." See, every day, we have a choice of building fences or bridges. One leads to isolation, the other leads to openness. As I've said, knowledge speaks, wisdom listens. Withstanding internal situations depends on our motivations. Wisdom. I'd like for you to please follow and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Mark Smith. Share your thoughts and this message with your family and friends tonight. You know, I want you to do me a huge favor. I want you to have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. Stay safe. Truly, I want you to stay safe. And remember something that I always say, and that's change begins and ends within. Every one of us are needed to help change a legacy in 2021 and beyond. I need you to also remember something that's important. God bless each one of you, and I want you to have a wonderful, wonderful holiday and have a great night. Thank you.